Welcome to the Craftsman interview. I'm here with Tom Maeglin and Kevin Kane from Hansa Coffee. And the objective of these interviews is to hear the story behind the entrepreneur. So let's just jump right into it, guys. How long have you been here in Libertyville? And tell us a little bit about the journey of how you got here, what you were doing beforehand, how you met one another, and that sort of thing.
Kevin and I met at the Libertyville branch of a small regional bank here. Okay. Kevin was the gregarious loan officer, and I was the dejected banker who told coffee stories like veterans tell their war stories.
All right.
So Kevin and I had actually talked about doing several businesses. We had talked about starting a courier business at one time. We both love the indoor bar culture. So and he's a former Rush Street bartender, and so we thought about opening a bar even. And then in 2013, Caribou Coffee was bought by a German hedge fund, and they closed a lot of them, and they turned a lot of them into Pete's Coffee. And what had happened was the one in Libertyville closed, and that was not so much, we didn't go there so much for the coffee as we went there for the people that worked there and the fact that it was just a gathering spot in town. So when they closed, we said to ourselves, we should really open a coffee shop. And then Kevin, I threw it out there just kind of jokingly. Kevin and I had been, drinking specialty coffee and been hanging out for a while now, so we both knew, he knew I had a coffee background and I knew he had a love for specialty coffee. So when I threw it out there kind of semi-jokingly, he turns to me and goes, how much would it cost to do it? And I threw a number out there, and then I think a week later we were down in Indiana buying our La Marzocco espresso machine. So it happened rather quickly.
Tom and I became friends. Then when we talked about coffee, Tom's knowledge is so in depth that like us mere coffee mortals, it's like he kind of tolerates us sometimes. And so here I am, some loan officer, and we start talking about coffee, and he goes, well, what kind of coffee maker do you have at home? And I go, I keep getting the name wrong. My beloved Krups gave up the ghost, and instead of having to rebuild, I went out and bought a new one. It was $80 instead of the $250 I paid for in the 80s for the original one. And but I thought better technology, cheaper. I was wrong. It just made bad coffee. It was cheap. Yeah. So I bought like 8 machines. My wife thought I was insane. I'd be sitting there with a candy thermometer, measuring the temperature of the water as it came out of the machine to see if it was hot enough. And so finally, in a fit of desperation one night, I googled best coffee maker in the world, and I came up with this. I got to the Specialty Coffee Association, the U.S. Specialty Coffee Association webpage. Recommend 2 brewers. One is a hand-built machine from Belgium. That's the one I bought. Makes a perfect cup of coffee every time. And so Tom goes, what kind of coffee maker you have? I said, I keep getting the name wrong. It's something like Tech Form, Tech something, Tech Form. They spell it with a V, not an F. And Tom looks at me and he goes, you have a Tech Form Mocha Master at home? And I go, yeah. And then Tom goes, what kind of grinder? So I go, I did my research on that one. I just said to pay it from the beginning. I've got this thing at home. I keep getting the name wrong. It's Virtue something, Virtue, whatever it is.
And then I say, you have a Brisata Virtuoso, which he tells me he has the 2 probably highest end consumer coffee. So I knew he liked coffee. At that point, I knew somebody who would spend just short of $1,000 to get good coffee at home was somebody that I should just respect.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the background of starting the business, and moving in from buying the espresso machine to starting putting all the pieces together. Some of the other issues we had was picking a location, and we looked everywhere from getting the existing Caribou space, which we couldn't rent because we couldn't roast coffee there. And the whole point of doing what we were going to do was, let's roast coffee on site, let's make it an experience. And finally I was walking my dog one day and I walked past this building, and it was right by the train tracks, and it was kind of cool, and it's this old garage, and so the next thing I know, I'm calling the building owner, and I'm taking a look at it. my now wife, my then fiance, asked me. She walks in and she just looks at me like I'm totally insane. She's like, you can't see it from the street. It's a weird location. It looks very industrial. But then Kevin actually was one of the ones that goes, this might just work. And so we spent most of the summer of 2013 painting it, ripping down walls, doing everything short of plumbing and electrical work, which would not be legal. So we didn't do any of that.
Yeah, it's the shop itself can be inconvenient to get to, but it can't be inconvenient to stop. Now, if we had $1 for every time someone told us that no one would ever take a left-hand turn when walking into this parking lot, we could have just retired before we started.
Yeah, it was a universal. It was a universal. You guys are insane. This is a terrible idea. It's never going to work. Coffee's ubiquitous. You can get it anywhere. And that was the general consensus among even close relatives of mine.
Isn't that usually what happens though with when you're starting a business venture? Everybody says it's a stupid idea and it's not going to work. I give you guys props for making it happen. It sounds like you really didn't hesitate either. I mean, sometimes it's a hard process to work through with family and everything to get to the point where you say, I'm making the leap. Sounds like you guys jumped pretty quick.
Well, Kevin has a quote about this. It's our favorite quote. It's
there's a couple. But the one that I thought of actually when we bought the La Marizoka, when we had the conversation about opening the coffee shop, we talked a lot about opening a coffee shop. I had in May of 2013, I spent 3 days in the hospital with ventricular AFib and a rapid heartbeat, all brought on by stress from the mortgage world. And Tom at that juncture had already taken a demotion to a part-time teller, so he could keep his health insurance and work on an internet business.
Okay.
But he still did all the retail lending in the branch because nobody else knew what they were doing. And so I go up to the teller line to talk about a home equity he was doing for me. And that's when he throws out, we should open a coffee shop. And what went through my mind was that I had 18 to 24 months and then I would be out of the mortgage business one way or another. So I'm thinking if I'm going to go down, I'm going to go down swinging.
Yeah.
So it's like, how much? Tom goes, how much what? We'll open a coffee shop. So then Tom comes and he, about a week later, and goes. We had somebody had a La Marizoka 3 group. They wanted $5,600 for it. It was in Indianapolis, and it was a best offer or auction on eBay. So with 12 hours left to go in the auction, no one had bid on it. So we basically offered him $4,000. He sold it to us.
Nice.
And what I was thinking when Tom did that was about this quote. It comes from, I think it's William H. Murray from the Scottish Himalayan expedition. He goes, I think the quote goes, the beginning, they always leave out the beginning, which is actually the important part. Which he goes, these guys wanted to go, it was the late 40s, and they wanted to go to the Himalayas to climb mountains. They didn't want a peak climb, they thought that was boring. They wanted to go to places where no one had gone before. And they were 4 mountaineers, and it was impossible to move. There were no material, no logistics. Europe was locked down. And so he goes, when I said we had done nothing, he goes, I was in error. We had booked passage. We had put our money down. He goes, we had put our money down. He goes, there was one fact for which lack of knowledge of countless human endeavors fail. That one once truly commits, providence moves too.
Amen.
So what we did is that we put our money down. We bought a $4,000 espresso machine. We didn't have
a lease. We didn't have anything. We didn't have anything. We still had people that were like, okay, are you feeling okay? Do we need to have you checked out in the hospital for a little while? Because at this point, everyone we knew thought we were totally insane.
And during the summer when we painted that room, the room on the other side was gray concrete. So when I walked in, I took a look. I took around and I went, there's 50 years of shit in these walls. We have to make sure it all stays there. So Tom's like, how do we do that? I go, we seal it. And then Tom's like, how do we do that? I go, 2 coats of Kills on everything. So we painted the ceiling with, it's got 4 coats of paint on it, 2 coats of Kills and 2 coats of paint. We had to do it with a spray gun. So we got tape and plastic all over the floor in there. where we had to buy a spray gun, and because it was cheaper. 6 days over 2 weeks, Tom and I, full bunny suits, masks, breathers.
It looked like an episode of Breaking Bad. It was, I think the police drove by 4 or 5 times and saw us.
What are these guys doing?
Yeah, and it was just, it was incredible.
And people stopped thinking we were insane. At that juncture, they were absolutely certain. But once that ceiling got done, it took 2 days to roll the walls, and then you started to see the room take shape.
Yeah. And that I started learning a lot about human nature at that point, because there's some people that look at an empty space and they have no imagination, they can't see it.
Right.
And I think this place turned out almost exactly like I thought it would all along. Just in terms of the space, the business is a different part of it. It did better than I thought, but just the actual physical space. But it's very, very important to what this place is. A lot of people take a look and they think it's sparse, it's barren, it's kind of, I wouldn't say sterile, but they, kind of open. And the way we designed this was an architect, friend of my family. He said to me, well, what are you trying to accomplish? And I said, I just want it to be very simple. I want it to be totally about the coffee, almost like a religious experience, like a temple. And he's like, that's it. It's a temple to coffee. And so I have a bit of a architecture background from college and mostly theory. And the way that we designed the place was to be a temple to coffee, stripped down and completely focused in on what we're trying to do, which was the product.
Right. The community seems to, by my estimation, really respond well to this temple to coffee.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that. Were you surprised at all, or did you have any hiccups along the way, or any kind of responses that caught you off guard?
Well, the city was really helpful with us. They didn't know what to do because they've never seen a business like this before. And the fact that we were roasting coffee and retailing it put us in kind of a special category for them. And they were very helpful to us. And every roadblock that came up along the way, they helped us find a way to just make it happen. The people in the community, the reason we picked Libertyville was because it's a very intensely active community, and it's a very educated, very rural. There's a lot of rural travelers, and there's a ton of education and experience, and just everybody in this town has a really interesting story, whether they're from here or they're from somewhere else, and they like good things. And that's how I knew from having my background that people that like good things like good coffee.
Yeah. Well, get geeky about coffee.
Before we go there for 1 second, you see, in the specialty coffee world, now my risk assessment of the business was that if Tom had coffee a quarter as well as he thought he could, we would do okay. But the fact of the matter is, Tom's better than he said. He goes, our coffee is on par with anyone, anywhere. And since I've got nothing to do with it, I have no problem saying it.
That's a great partnership, by the way.
But there's another side of the business.
Yep.
This is a customer service business. This is the hospitality industry. Now, we went to a lot of we did a lot of field trips. We went to a lot of coffee shops, and some of them have the specialty coffee attitude. Where you walk in and basically they talk down to you about coffee.
Yeah.
So when we opened this place, we wanted this place to be a community space. The model for this is that this place is not a high-end coffee shop. It's a neighborhood tavern or inn, where in the old world sense, where everyone 8 and older and 8 and younger and 80 and older is welcome.
Yeah.
And so now, Tom and his wife Alex were very, very savvy when it comes to Facebook and internet marketing. So we had 300 followers on Facebook before we opened up the door. And the other thing that we did was that whenever anybody would stop, we were building out, we would stop what we were doing, and if we had coffee, we'd make a cup of coffee for them. We'd do a pour over. So we basically by design wanted to reach out into the community. And it's like we told when we were in front of the planning commission, they asked us about the other coffee shops in town, and what I said to them is that if our business model was to make money off of your traffic flow, we wouldn't be here. He goes, we intend to make the coffee so good that this place becomes a destination. Coffee people will travel. Coffee people generally have money. So my business model is not to make money off of your traffic flow, but for your merchants to make money off of mine. And it's pretty much worked that way. But the first thing is that everybody has to be welcome here.
How do you teach that?
You can't teach it. I think what happened was we found employees that our values syncopated with their values.
Yeah.
And we hired people that, we could see were, wanted to do a good job, liked the product, and were willing to learn. So you guys have some nerd out about coffee?
Yes, please do.
Oh man, it's hard. Specialty coffee being defined as, some of the finer coffees in the world, I think they say 7 to 13% of the coffee market. What it is and what it has become, in the early 2000s is when it really started to boom. You started seeing more barista competitions, places like Intelligentsia here in Chicago and Stumptown in Portland. Those are two of the bigger names, and that kind of type of coffee has always existed in the indie coffee culture. Worrying about origin, preparation, and roasting, and all those things coming together from seed to cup. In the last 3 or 4 years, it's kind of transcended that. You've seen a boom. You've seen the multi-roaster concept, which is a boutique coffee shop serving 3 or 4 different types of roasters. And what you've seen is a lot of what we are, which is, I came from a bigger coffee shop, I came from Collectivo, which formerly was Altera, and they were a powerhouse in the industry. And the diaspora of, it's kind of like the tech industry. You had Silicon Valley out in the 50s to a much smaller scale, and I'm not comparing us to Apple or any of those people. But what you notice is everybody started at what was that transistor company called? There was this transistor company, and then and 2 guys left and formed Intel, and then people from IBM left and formed all these countries. So now you have an industry, right? So that's kind of what's happened in specialty coffee. It's not this niche thing anymore that people kind of make fun of. I'm not the prototypical hipster coffee shop owner. And that's been the trend is young kids who you walk into the coffee shop and they judge you. That's going away for the betterment of the industry, because we don't want people to be afraid of what we do, and it's all about asking questions and being open about it, and that starts with a coffee. So
it's kind of like craft beer.
Craft beer, but even craft beer isn't as scary because people know more about beer than they do about coffee. There's more people that have brewed beer than even know how coffee's roasted. Does that make sense? The coffee is so mystified because it's shrouded in this world of, take the most famous specialty coffee shop in the United States. It's called Intelligentsia. It was this small group of people that were the guardians of this secret ancient knowledge, and it's really not. The hard part is the fact is this stuff has to be grown with extreme amounts of care. It's very expensive to grow. It's very expensive to buy if you're buying the proper coffee, and your profit margins aren't like they are when you're a giant corporation. You can buy metric tons of coffee that's screened and graded and dry. It isn't patio dried. It's dried in a dryer. A lot of our farmers that we get our coffee from, they don't even have paved roads. They're throwing bags of coffee on their shoulder and walking it up the side of a hill, or they're putting it on the back of a motorcycle. And one of the questions I get a lot is, I had the coffee here last week and you guys don't have it anymore. And I always tell people, it's like, because that's how much was in the United States. We buy it as soon as we can get it, fresh crop, and then we roast it while we have it. We roast it to the best of our ability, and then it's usually gone.
Is there a middleman in between you and the farmer?
There usually is. There's somebody who has to import it. Okay. We don't have the resources to import a container full of coffee at a time. It's just we couldn't move that much. So what we do is we use we use an importer that only deals with specialty coffee shops. Okay. I've been in their warehouse and they have literally millions of pounds of coffee in there. But there's so many of us popping up now that their stock is dwindling. It goes up and down. It's really amazing how many of shops that our size have opened up and are, you know, at the same quality level. Because what's happened, as I said, a whole generation of people my age have said, okay, I think I'm going to do this myself.
Right. So, talk a little bit about the roasting process that you have here on site.
We only roast in about 10-pound batches, and a lot of people say, oh well, you know, that's you know, how could you spend that much on labor? But really, the bottom line is I always tell people, like, think about Grandma's lasagna. Grandma, you know, would get up early in the morning. She'd get all her ingredients. She'd spend a lot of time. She'd make a tray of lasagna, and it was the best lasagna you've ever had. And from a scale perspective, the reason why is because she put all her attention into a smaller amount. Now, when you went to the high school cafeteria and you had lasagna at the high school cafeteria, where they made 40 trays of lasagna, it's a little bit different, right? And that's with the same philosophy. We take 10 pounds at a time. We roast it. We use not a lot of sophisticated. We just use a temperature probe, readout, and we use a gas knob to adjust temperature, and that's it. I don't believe in sophisticated profiling because it doesn't work. And the reason I say that is because coffee loses its water content as it gets older. And you may have a coffee that, you know, it roasts well, you know, 1 week, 2 weeks later, because of certain climatic conditions, whether the beans being too hot or warm when you put them in the roaster, or hot or cold, it will totally change the roasting process. This is something that kind of hones in on a philosophy that Kevin and I have, and that's, we want a human being making decisions. We don't want a computer making decisions, because another thing I truly believe is that if you put too much trust in numbers, it's the paralysis by analysis kind of thing.
Sure.
If you're putting too much trust in numbers and things of that nature, you're not actually being the artist making the decision, artist or craftsman or whatever you would like to call it, but the person who has the knowledge and education and has the skill to make a decision about the product. So that kind of goes into our roasting philosophy too. Is we do we have our readout of our temperature and our gas, and that's it. That's all the sophisticated technology that goes into it.
Got it. If there was one thing that you think that perhaps the customers that you have here doesn't know that you wish they knew about your process, what might that be?
Oh man, that's the Pandora's box for me. That's not a rip on our customers. We have phenomenal customers. It's just that coffee. You mentioned beer. I wish they knew as much as they knew about beer, because what's happened in the coffee industry is that as some of the bigger players in the industry have proliferated and they've caused a lot of misinformation. And coffee, the one thing I would say, coffee should not taste like a campfire. It shouldn't have a burnt flavor. Coffee, if it's done properly, should taste more closer to what it is. It's a fruit. Coffee looks like a cranberry, and the beans sit together like this inside the fruit. And if you roast cook coffee properly, you get fruit flavors, you get nutty flavors, you get vegetable flavors. All that stuff comes out. My job is to not put that there. My job is to take that out. Right. Okay. Right. So the flavor is already there, and that's one of the things when people read our tasting notes on our bags. They'll go, "Oh, juicy lemon and herbal tones," and they're like, "Oh, well, how do you get that flavor in there?" And I always tell them, it's like, there's coffees that taste like blueberries. There's coffees that taste like strawberries. There's coffees that if you smelled it, you would say it smelled like green peppers. Yeah. And that's just the specialization of what we do. Is we find coffees that are really amazing, and then we roast them to get those characteristics out of them. And that's what I would want people to understand, is that we don't add flavor. We bring the flavor out.
Right. That's great. What's on the horizon for Hansa? 3 years from now, does this place? You've got one location now, correct? You're still doing your online stuff, right? Yep. Is it wholesale or?
We do wholesale. So if you're a bar, coffee shop, restaurant, company, we do everything from coffee service in your office to we do other coffee shops, Prairie Espresso, for example, in Lake Bluff. Julie's Coffee in Lake Villa, and another one, Geneva Java. We just signed them up yesterday in Lake Geneva. So we have coffee shops. You can, and there's plenty of ways to find us and to purchase our coffee even if you don't live close, which is on our website, hansacoffee.com.
Great, great. What's on the horizon? More stores in the future, or
well,
what are you thinking?
We're looking for a second store now.
Okay.
We thought we were gonna be able to go into Evanston, but we got approached by one of their city planners. But the medical marijuana store is supposed to go in that spot. So
which it may not if the governor gets his way. So
we're gonna, and what we look for are properties like this. We want a disused property, something that is an eyesore. Because that's what this was before we went here.
And but with character, I would say.
Right.
Yeah.
Like when we spoke about that abandoned gas station in Lake Forest.
Right.
That would be perfect for us.
Okay.
Because then we could go in there and we could turn that into a community meeting spot rather than what it is currently. That's what we want. We want something that's out of the way, that has its own parking, and that is a disused building. The other thing for us is wholesale. We want to expand wholesale. We imagine the business getting to the point where we're doing 10 or 20,000 pounds a month, supplying other coffee shops.
He says that so confidently because he doesn't have to roast it. That's why he
10 pounds at a time.
Yeah,
10,000, 20,000.
That's the other thing too. We might scale up the roasting operation slightly, just because from a standpoint, I think 20 pounds, 30 pounds a batch is the largest I ever want to go.
Okay.
So, but our wholesale has steadily grown to the point now where it's starting to get a little bit. We're getting a lot of. I don't know how to even explain it. It's just it's pretty amazing in a short matter of time how many places actually do sell our coffee.
Now you've done some cool collaboration. You did something with Lake Bluff Brewery, correct?
Yeah, we did. We actually used Prairie Espresso. I just brought up a few minutes ago. They serve our coffee in the small Scranton Alley store in Lake Bluff. They have a custom roast that we do for them. Called Lake Bluff Blend, and they actually infuse that in a beer with Lake Bluff Brewery, and it's awesome. It's a really good beer. I don't know if they have it on tap all the time, but I'm sure they're going to do batches of it. We've done collaborations with Ram Brewery too.
Okay.
And then home brewers have been using our coffee like crazy. So
that's great.
Yeah.
Any shout out that you want to give to anybody that's been super helpful, or that you just want to acknowledge while we're
there's so many.
Well,
yeah,
I'm going to start right up front with my wife.
Good call,
because I said, okay, I'm quitting the banking business and we're going to be coffee barons.
Yeah.
She was like, oh, really?
Yeah, both our families have been really supportive. We couldn't, and our friends too, and my friends all over the country that buy 5 or 10 pounds of coffee at a time. Just our customers are like fiercely loyal. We had a blizzard the other day and they skied here. So I'm not joking.
Yeah, I saw that.
I got
Facebook.
photo evidence on Facebook.
And it wasn't you skiing. That was actually customers stopping by on skis, right?
Yeah, and I think one of the things is we've just made this a place for them. This is a place for people to feel comfortable. So thanks to them. I've had so many teachers. I have teachers all the time. I consult in the specialty coffee business. If you wanted to open a store, a lot of people call me and I'll go out to your site. And I was actually in Arizona this weekend opening a coffee shop with some people. And what I've come to find is that sometimes I learn from my clients too.
Sure.
So, but that's one thing about this industry. You never really stop learning ever.
So tell us a little bit about the menu that you have.
We wanted to emphasize traditional espresso drinks. We have, starting with the espresso, going through the cappuccino, which I think is the benchmark. That's the drink every good cafe should be able to properly make. And you see things on there like the cortado, which is often referred to as the Spanish cappuccino. That's a drink that I just picked up throughout the years, and it's gaining popularity, but it's not really. And all those things mean is espresso with milk. It's just what proportion of espresso and milk do you want. So
okay.
We just try to keep it simple. We have hidden menu drinks. We have a drink with Dr. Pepper and espresso in it. We have cayenne pepper mocha, great. Which was named after it's called the Chili Pea, which is a Breaking Bad reference. So there are so many things that and you know, we can make you pretty much anything you want. We just chose our menu to keep it focused in on the core things, which are traditional espresso drinks. And
okay, so if I'm a total nerd about it, I can come in and you guys can customize a drink for me?
Correct.
Awesome.
But I would recommend, if you ever go to a coffee shop and you really want to judge their quality, order a cappuccino. If they can't do a cappuccino well, then I think they need to go back to the drawing board. I think that's the drink that everyone really needs to just execute perfectly.
Got it. How do you know when it's done wrong?
Well, a cappuccino should never have burnt. It should never have soap sudsy foam with a giant meniscus where it's bubbling out like you see in a James Bond movie. It should be flat with a tiny bit of a meniscus. And you should, when you push the spoon back, it should pillow up on one side and then come back down. And when you drink it, it should not be overly hot, and it should be drinkable, right? You know, it has so many meanings, but it really just means that what I just explained.
Okay, all right, it's great.
You know, it's like, well, the first drink we made with our own coffee was a cappuccino. We couldn't fire anything else up, but we could get we used a flow jet to basically put water into the espresso machine so we could get that up and running.
Okay.
So Tom makes the first drink's a cappuccino. Tom hands it to me, perfect latte art, and all I take a sip out of it. That was the best cappuccino ever, up to that point.
Yeah.
So I hand it back to Tom, and Tom takes a sip out of it. And he goes, I think the beans are a little young. And I'm like, we have all these 20-somethings around us, and they're all thinking what I'm thinking, and I go, what does that mean? What does that mean the beans are a little young?
Why don't you explain, now that you know, why don't you explain what that means?
When you roast coffee, it emits a gas.
Okay.
And so it has to be allowed to rest. In the for brewed coffee, 3 to 10 days. For espresso, 7 to 30 days, depending on the hardness of the bean. And if you don't allow the coffee to rest, the coffee can become quirky. Tom could taste it.
The syrups are just, you know, we couldn't find what we wanted, so we made them. And
I love it.
It's, you know,
that's the entrepreneurial spirit, man.
There's a lot of that goes on here.
Yeah, you know, we call it the spirit of Uncle Dave. Kevin had an uncle named Dave who, you know, he grew up with his being raised by his mom, and anytime she wanted something fixed or he didn't know how to fix something, he said, go across the street and see Uncle Dave. Uncle Dave knew how to fix everything. So, you know, when we started, we did this all cash. We didn't get a bank loan. No one would give us a bank loan for something like this. So we bought a table saw, and we channeled the spirit of Uncle Dave. So
pretty much.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's
the signature wall is a good case in point. You know, when we wanted a signature piece, so that if you walked into one of our stores, you would know you were in a Hansa coffee roaster without having to read a sign.
okay.
So on the website it would look like a pallet wall. So like, let's do a wood wall.
Reclaimed wood,
Yeah,
you know,
got it.
kind of rustic looking.
It's awesome.
So Tom's like, we'll do a pallet wall.
Yeah.
I'm like, you ever pulled wood off a pallet? You know, sanded it, stained it, refinished it. I was like, oh no, but it's not that hard. So the YouTube video. I'm like,
Go ahead.
I go, pre-finished hardwood floor. We'll mount it vertically.
There you go.
So we went to Lumber Liquidators, and we took a look around. And on the way back, we went to Hobo's, and they were giving away a maple floor. We bought it in 3 colors. And we dumped it right in front of the wall. And
we told his daughter to get cracking.
Yeah.
And his daughter, who's artistically very gifted, she I think like we came back in an afternoon and it was done. And it was just a stunning. It was you know, and it wasn't expensive. It was just something, you know, we wanted to do.
I love it.
Yeah.
I didn't know the story behind it, so thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
That's cool.
It was like we put the wood down and said, call us when it's over.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys again. Appreciate your time and your willingness to sit down. It's been great.
You got me.
Thanks, Jim.
All right, George.